My name is Dr. Mabouba. I'm the Finance Vice-President of the ECOWAS Investment and Development Bank. First of all, allow me to thank everybody, greeting the President, the Vice-President of Operations, the Secretary General, and all distinguished guests, and also welcome our beloved partner from IFD. I saw, the World Bank, I saw Ora Group, and all these partners that have joined us this morning, and all colleagues that have joined us from the ECOWAS Commission. The role of DFI to unlock the development of the continent has no longer need to be demonstrated. But the challenges are there, the reason why we are all here. If you see Africa, let's start with the agri-sector. You take Benin, Mali, Burkina, they produce 10% of the cotton of the world, but we still import underwear. You take cacao, you take coffee, we drive the global demand. The raw products are exported and we import high value. And I always joke whenever I met with Minister of Finance, and I tell them, whenever you export raw material and you import finished product, you are exporting Africa's job. And it's our role here at the Development Bank to unlock those opportunities. Investing in the economies and that drives the GDP of our countries should be our DNA, should be our mandate. And what the President has rightly said, over the last 3 years, what EBID has done in terms of resource mobilization, impacting and investing in those industries that create jobs, promoting food security, is exactly what we must do and what we will continue doing. In collaborating with partners like African Development Bank, AFD, World Bank, India Exim Bank, Export Credit Agencies, Islamic Development Bank, is exactly what we must do and what we'll be doing. And during this course of the panels today, we will demonstrate how Africa not only can boost the industrialization of our economies, can create what I will call food security, food sovereignty, while driving development and growth in our continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You have had the experience of working in commercial banks and the DFIs. What strikes you as the most significant difference between these two business models?
Many thanks, Dr. Asenso. You know, when I left London, working for global investment banks like Dresden, like Credit Suisse, like Barclays, the major driver was money-making machine. We never worried about the social impact of what we were doing. It was money, 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 money. And when you start working for a development bank, you start thinking about doing well by doing good. Job creation comes to mind. Social impact comes to mind. How well institutions are contributing to the well-being of the world. This is a primary mandate of a development bank. You know, when you sit in London and you watch on Wall Street or on CNN, you see young people crossing the Gibraltar. Here's a young African fellow, it speaks to you. Especially when somebody that you know has been trying to cross over. And this has started speaking to me. And I said, I must go back to Africa. It's not about money. You know, when you reach certain executive level, you start thinking about your individual impact in the community, your individual contribution in the community. And what I have, when I see in the leadership of Dr. Joy Donkor, what EBID has done in the last 3 years, in various sectors of the industry in our various countries, it tells that the social return could be much greater than the financial return. And let me elaborate and tell you just one example. When I decided to come back, I asked myself, even beside what the bank is doing, let me see on my personal capacity what I can do in the village where my grandfather was coming from. And I was shocked. Even a milling, a small mill, they grow peanuts, they grow millet, even transforming that millet, they couldn't do it. And why they couldn't do it? Because the three-phase electricity is 5 kilometers away from the village. And I start trying to bring three-phase electricity in the village. It took me 20 million CFA. And I asked myself, there are two options. Either I wait for a bank to do it, or I do it. Now, let me tell you the story, the beautiful story about just bringing that three-phase electricity. We have now a small milling that people use to transform their products. Value add jump by 30%. And it also unlocked cattle farming, sheep farming, because out of the transformation of that product, they have byproducts. Women start getting organized in terms of small cooperative, and a bank like us supporting local commercial banks, they will support the SMEs in those countries. That will show that with one stone, you kill multiple birds. This is what a development bank can do. Let me illustrate further now at a bigger scale. You take a country like Senegal. We produce 75 million chicken a year. To produce 75 million chicken a year, 4 kilograms of feed is 210,000 metric tons of maize that you need. If you assume that to produce in 1 hectare you can produce 5 metric tons of maize, it's 9,800 jobs that you can create. The reason why I strongly do believe that development bank like us, partnering with partners like IFD, supporting the local commercial bank like Orago, can really unlock the development of our continent. And now you allow me to be very provocative. Africa should stop begging. The international community has put enough money in Africa. What is lacking now, it's we African people taking our destiny with our hand and showing that it's doable. Ghana is importing $300 million of poultry. Poultry is 70% maize. So the main food of Ghana staple food is kente. Kente is made of maize. What does it mean? It means that Ghana know how to produce maize. If you know how to produce maize, why should you import chicken? Guinea-Conakry import 50 million euro of chicken. Look at the country where we are, Togo. Togo, something very, very interesting is happening in Togo. Togo is one of the few countries in the region who knows how to produce soya. 90% of the continent is importing soya. Can you imagine now if Togo just specialized on soya? I'm not even talking about the 54 African countries. I'm only talking about the 300 million people of the Sahel. The potential is huge. Now, to unlock that potential, the development banks can come now, because those long-term financing that our friends from Oraba are talking about, with the support of development partners like IFD, with the support of development partners like the World Bank, we can make available those long-term resources. Leveraging export credit agencies, leveraging developmental partners, and do what I call economic diplomacy. Today, the Ukraine war has shown that, COVID has shown that even the developed countries can be vulnerable. You remember 4 months ago, one tablet of egg was taking $5 in New York. It just shows that even the developed countries can be vulnerable. Reason why I strongly do believe that the ECOWAS Investment Development Bank, supporting our member countries with long-term financing resources, pushing the agenda of agri-industry, unlocking, pushing food security on basic products like maize, soya, beneficiating cotton. And experience have shown, and what we have done the last 3 years have shown that it's doable and it's possible. And the more important thing, the international community is willing to support. When I remember 3 years ago when we embarked ourselves into the WAFA program, the Islamic Development Bank, the Germans, Badea, supported with $150 million of trade finance line to import fertilizer, but also 90 million euro to support the capex expenditure of the program. That's why I really do believe that ECOWAS is an amazing platform leveraging of EBID, which has done an amazing job the last 3 years. And I strongly believe that today, I see a lot of young African people coming back into the continent, what I call the global African. And when they come back, they have seen what good looks like in Europe. They have the carnet d'adresse, they have the Rolodex. And I strongly believe that today, with the new financing mechanism, EBID can play a significant role in unlocking the development in the industrialization of the continent. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Mabouba. Moving on to the World Bank, Mr. Ona. The sub-region is basically agrarian when it comes to economic activity. Manufacturing is under 5%. What are institutions like yours doing to help to drive the industrialization agenda that we so much talk about but see very little action on? In 2 minutes, please.
Many thanks. You know, funding cost has always been a challenge in Africa. But I strongly believe that it's not an insurmountable problem. You know, when returns are on double digit, push come to push, you can afford to pay a high cost of funding. For example, in Europe, when you take agri, maybe people are talking about low 10 return on investment. In Africa, you're talking about low 20. It does not mean that we should still pay for cost of funding, high cost of funding. Today, Africa is suffering unjustly. The US are rising their suffer, Africa is paying for it. I think that the international community must address that problem. And I'm taking this opportunity to provoke a little bit our friend from the World Bank to do a little bit of advocacy on it. Today, it does not explain, it's not right that the US will wake up one day because they want to manage their inflation, they are hiking their interest rate, that we, Africa, will pay for it. But let's park that problem, because I believe that big boys like African Development Bank, under their high-fire strategy, should be bold enough to come and subsidize the funds supporting people like us, and we do blended finance by supporting the commercial banks, but making also sure that we put the money in the right sector. You know, we have seen that African government knows how to build roads, how to build bridges. Why are we not putting money in agri-infrastructure? I visited Israel more than 6-7 times. They have a system called kibbutz. It's a cooperative system. But when the community come to build a cooperative, government will build all the infrastructure, including bringing water, bringing irrigation system, bringing electricity, and now tell the cooperative, go for it. The problem of fiscality. Many people talk about funding. Yes, funding is high. Look at the tax rate. You start a small, medium-sized enterprise in Africa. Maximum 3 years after, you have to pay 32% on tax. You have to pay 18% on VAT. That's 50% of your revenue. Compared to Europe, where it is low 20. So the problem of financing of our development, I think that has many hurdles. Yes, I agree with you that funding has been the challenge. The cost of funding has been a challenge. But it's time that our government start thinking about the high fiscality that they put on us. Now, our colleague from World Bank said something very, very, very important that I think that maybe he didn't underplay it. The duplication of this industrial or economic zone or agropole. To be honest, if I see Benin and Togo, why they have 2 industrial zones? Let's put 1 industrial zone, supported and capacitated by people like us in terms of funding. But what is the most important thing is now supporting the cooperative to make sure that that industrial zone works, because you have all the agri-inputs. You have seed, fertilizer, chemicals in abundance. You have supported the local farmers with adequate training, and now they are growing the right thing that is feeding those industrial zones. And this is now where I think that the cost of funding comes in. And today, Africa is in a situation where everybody is talking about green financing. Those financing are not expensive. But now if somehow, together with big boys like African Development Banks, BOAD, BIDC, with the support of partners like AFD, we can attract those funds. I think that we could do a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of the questions that they fielded from me. I would like to give the opportunity to the audience to also ask questions if they have any. If you don't have questions, I will ask them for you. So if you want to ask a question, please raise up your hand and the microphone will be passed around for you to be able to do it. Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Asenso. I have some few questions that I want to ask. One of the challenges that we have as a bank is the required information that we need to be able to assess a project. Some of the documents that we have are not adequate enough because of the way they are prepared. This is when technical assistance facility becomes very critical to be able to assist our investors to invest in feasibility studies, technical, financial, etc. This is to Mr. Sissoko. In World Bank, what kind of technical assistance facility do you have available, and how can companies like EBID assess it? My second question goes to Mr. Sissoko and Madam, I'm trying to get the name, Zizalia. Okay, thank you. I want to talk about training opportunities for organizations like us, either from World Bank or AFDB, that we can also benefit from as a bank. My third question is a follow-up on Dr. Asenso's question regarding the scanty concentration of funding in the agri sector. As World Bank, what are you doing specifically to momentarily assist West Africa in respect of this sector, the agri sector? I think I have a few more.
No.
Okay, the last one.
We are running out of time.
Okay, last one. The last one is for Mr. MD of Ura Bank. I think we've talked a lot about how financial institutions like us have been able to help you. Can you give us few impacts that DFI financing have had on your organization in specific, and how we'll be able to do more to enhance this impact? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That will be the end of the first round set of questions. I'll throw it to the panelists to answer. Please pick whichever one you are comfortable with, and then if they are any, we'll just assign them. Thank you.
Okay. Maybe let me take the first, the question of Maximilian's. If you see where the political or, let's say, security issues are around the region, Mali, Burkina, a little bit in Nigeria, and a little bit, in the Savannah region here in Togo. I strongly do believe that there is a high correlation between the youth unemployment and those regions. I am not saying that the youth unemployment is the only factor, but the correlation is very high. I believe that it's time for our political leaders, the leaders from the ECOWAS, to put at the highest level of the agenda the employability of the youth and create jobs to get them busy. I am the chairman of the second largest university in my country. In our last board meeting, in the evening, I went and I just walked in the campus. A university that was supposed to have 4,000 students now have 17,000 students. And I was glad this morning when I was chatting with the Secretary General. A small country like Senegal is crashing out 200,000 master students graduating every year. Out of those 200,000, less than 10% get a job. I have a small poultry farm in my country. When you apply for a security job, you receive 1,000 applications. 1,000. I'm not exaggerating. 75,000, 100,000 CFA salary. People will come and apply in queue. Can you imagine now those people, the next day, a political leader, bad intention, come and offer them $500. You call it jihad, you call it whatever you call it. Those people, you can easily recuperate them and make them monster. Reason why, we have the development bank. We have a regional body like ECOWAS. We should
Et permettez-moi d'être encore provocateur à ce stade.
We can use that money to invest in the youth. Look at all the countries that have been relatively unstable. Sudan produced more than 50 tons of gold every year. Look at on the record, on the government record, officially what is recorded, what is published. For me, to solve the security problem in our region, let's start with getting the youth busy, creating decent, stable job, and training people accordingly. What does it mean? It means that our government, our development financial institutions, supporting our countries in investing in the right sector and making people accountable. Our colleague from Aerobank said something very important, and we all suffer from it. Somebody will borrow money from the bank, will misbehave, you take him to court, it will take 10 years. At the point where even bank prefer to close the door of funding, and there are projects that we can fund. For me, the unemployability of the youth is one of the major challenges. And also, our countries, if security is a big issue, we should put money on security. Why, when there are problems, we call for all the people to come and solve our problem? Why? In Mali, we have seen there was Germans, there was French people. Why? We should be the first driver, we should be the first line of defense. And I strongly believe that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sissoko.
We are EBID. EBID, transforming ECOWAS communities. We have more information for you at www.bidc-ebid.org.